Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Unravel Your Mind. We're here to transform relationships to love and life. And as always, I love your questions. It's so much fun to sit with you every Sunday morning at 11:11 Pacific time. We have a whole list of great questions today that I'm excited to go through with you. I'm not home. I'm actually in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I have not been, well, actually, no, I'm in Oconomowoc. Has anyone heard of Oconomowoc, Wisconsin? If you have, put it in the chat. I'd be happy to know because I had a really hard time pronouncing the name. And I'm here to see a dear friend celebrate a birthday and just be in communion with other people that I love on planet Earth. So I'm excited to be here. Let's get started with the first question. There's a whole bunch of them here. This one is actually a three-part question. I'm going to put it into two questions. You'll understand why here in just a second. So question number one is, how do I talk to my angel guides? What do I ask them? Or do I have a conversation? This is a great question. I think that the more we can talk to our guides, the better. I think too many times on our spiritual journeys, or even if we're not on our spiritual journeys, we're trying to do everything ourselves, and that is not what spirit wants us to do. Spirit wants us to know that we are always being guided by our higher self, our many dimensional selves, if you will, which can come in the form of a guardian angel, a star seed, many different forms. It could be a loved one that's crossed over to the other side, so other spirits. But this was specific to my angel guides. So I think that what I'm about to say can translate across all of those different spirits and ways that we can be supported. But most important, get a practice to actually be in communication with your guides. You wouldn't get up in the morning and not drink water or drink, whatever your morning beverage is, because it's just part of your routine. It's something that you know to do. So why wouldn't you want to get up every morning and get some direction from your higher self, the one that can see through the illusion of everything that's happening here in this very chaotic, lower vibrational, which doesn't mean bad. It just means that everything's at a little bit lower vibration. Why wouldn't you want to look at it from the God's eye view, from a higher perspective, from your higher self? So I look at angel guides as aspects of myself in other dimensions and realms that can help me. So how do we do it? The intention, first of all, to do it, and to do it with some consistency and to incorporate it into our practice. The more we do it, the better I think that we can get at it. And I don't mean that as a judgment. Don't judge yourself if you feel like, oh, I'm not hearing anything. No. Just keep talking. So what I like to do is sit quietly in a space where I'm not going to get interrupted. There, I'm not going to hear everything from my external world that's going to bombard me. I'm not going to see my phone and all my messages. So it's getting that quiet space prepared. Where is that going to be? Maybe it's an altar. I know I've talked about that on previous shows, and I'm a big fan now of having an altar, just because it does bring us that, that really concentrated space. I mean, if you think back to college, a little off topic, but this really resonates that in college, it was really hard to study unless I went to like a study booth. I went somewhere where I didn't look at everything else. Some people find that listening to a particular type of music in the background, just distracts the mind so they can get in. But whatever you can do to not have your mind distracted, or to distract the mind in a way that you can just be in that quiet space, that is really the trick. I find that journaling, remote writing is one of the best ways for me. If it's not the way that works for you, you can sit in quiet meditation and just literally quiet the mind and listen for drop-ins. But journaling has this way of, keeping your hand, and I mean journaling with a pen and paper. I use my journal all the time. I thought I had it right here, but that way you can also look back and see. I oftentimes, when I look back, I'm like, wait, who wrote that? So journaling is a great way to get in touch with your guides. What do I ask them? Well, it really depends upon what it is that you're looking for guidance on. If you don't have a specific question, then just say, what is the most important thing for me to know for my day today? The other thing you can do is, yes, ask them questions. I always shy away from how can I, right? Because then that means that you're going to do the work. And there's always something bigger about show me the way, show me how, show me what connections I need, show me where I need to be today, provide me the feeling that I know unequivocally without a doubt that this is where I'm supposed to go, or this is someone that I'm supposed to build a relationship with. So it's getting, into the show me's, the guide me's, those kinds of words, as opposed to how can I? Because then you're just back in the I. You're not in the magnitude of what your guides are here to help you with, right? They want to help you, but there's these little, I'm going to call it a glitch. It's not really a glitch, but a little glitch, and that you have to ask for assistance. So they can't just give it to you without you asking for some assistance. Some people call it prayer. I get a little sensitive about that because a lot of other people want to think immediately traditional religion, and that's not what it is. A prayer can be an intention, a request. Just asking those genuine questions of what you want. And yes, it can be a conversation. I find often when I just write a question, like it can be so basic, like, why do I feel sad today? And then the pen just writes on the paper, and I just feel so guided by that. And then that prompts another question and another question. And I just keep writing the response from my guides. And sometimes that takes a little practice. And for others, it's like immediate. It's just super easy. So again, if you put it into, an everyday routine for yourself, I think you're going to find that it gets easier and easier and easier. And also your inner cheerleader is going to come out as opposed to that inner critic. The inner critic is always going to be the mind, the ego mind, which is trying to tell you that you're doing something wrong. It's got a judgment. It's the voice in your head that makes you feel and less than. And so you want to get in touch with that cheerleader side of you, your angel guides, your higher vibrational self. Now, the second, actually the third part of this question is, how do I know when I'm getting the answer or I'm projecting people to say coins and feathers? I'm going to guess at what this person actually means by this. I think what they're saying is that if they're going to someone to help them speak to their guides and they're recommending like, oh, look for a coin or a feather. I think the question is how do I know if I'm just projecting that for someone else to see? Well, of course you're projecting, because everything is about you. Everything out in your external world is a reflection of some aspect of yourself that you're calling in for someone else to reflect to you. So if someone says, oh, look for a coin or look for a feather, then I would trust that that's coming from a reflection of an aspect of yourself. Now, with that said, even when it comes to like tarot card readings and that kind of thing, I always believe that that is a great opportunity to have a reaction to what someone else is saying. So it may not be exactly what a reader is saying to you. It may be that they're giving you something that then prompts something within yourself, like, oh, wow, does that resonate? Oh, yeah, of course. I was asking to talk to my grandfather, and she said feathers, and my grandfather was a pheasant hunter, right? So that could be like, oh, that resonates for me, or oh, that means this X, Y, or Z. Because anyone else who's reading your field, they're basically watching a movie screen of your life, and they're going to see it through their lens and try to give you some tidbits that then you have to be able to say, oh, that makes sense to me. So if you get something that doesn't feel 100% on, then there just may be a different way of looking at it, or a different lens of which you need to just kind of, oh, let me see how that fits and how that feels. And if it doesn't, then let it go. You don't have to take guidance from someone else. I'm assuming we're still talking about like a reader. They're there probably to get you to just react to what they're saying. And if it doesn't resonate, then ask your higher self, oh, what does make sense? What does resonate for me? What does make me feel in the flow here? And get that feeling inside, right? It's about the feeling in your body, not about letting the mind run wild with the storylines about what other people are telling you. Hopefully that answers the question. If not, please comment in the comments below. Even if you're on replay, I'll answer them next week. Okay, so question number 2. Is there really love at first sight? Oh, I love this question, because if you've experienced big love, it probably started with a deep attraction to someone. Like you were like, oh my God, I feel like I've known this person forever, right? And you just met them. Or, oh wow, I just feel this incredible connection to them. It must be a previous life. All of those things can be true, but there's something called limerence, and I know we've talked about that before. And it's a real connection that you have with someone. The 7 stages of love that Deepak Chopra talks about. I mean, the first one is always going to be this attraction, this chemistry, this like, I just feel it in my body. And I love that. I love chemistry, and I love chemistry between potential romantic partners. It's fun. A couple of things I would say to keep in mind, and then I will answer this very directly. But a couple of things to keep in mind is that we attract others based on our own vibration, based on our own wounds. So if we have something up for healing, man, we're going to find somebody that's going to bring us together with them, and it's going to feel like love at first sight, right? But the really important thing to get here, the really, really, really important thing to get is that love is within you. Being attracted to someone else and this love at first sight thing is part of the romantic love illusion. So you're here to love yourself first. And when you do, then you can attract people that love themselves as well. And then you can be in a divine complement kind of relationship. And then you're just sharing your love, right? So love isn't outside of yourself. So to have love at first sight, well, there's maybe another way I'll approach that, because I'm assuming that this person's question is more about romantic love. And so everything that I just said is very much about you're asking them to come into your life for a reason. You probably have a soul contract with them. Now, another little twist on this love at first sight is sometimes when we see our newborn baby for the first time, it's just like, love at first sight, right? Or, a puppy, right? When I first saw my dog Lily, I was like, oh my God, like it's love at first sight, just like there was just this connection to her. And I just knew that she was my pup, even though I wasn't ready to have a puppy at that point in my life. So that can feel like this love at first sight. But what it really is, especially with newborn babies, is they come out with this innocence, this pure love. And when we see that, we see a reflection of ourselves and a desire to be back in connection with our own pure love. And so that's why babies are just so easy to love, because they don't have any stories, they don't have any narratives, they don't have any charge for us yet. Right? I guess until they maybe stay up all night, or, they go through their teething, or whatever the contract is that you have with babies in your life and children in your life, people in your life in general. So, love at first sight is part of the romantic love illusion, but I love to think about it. And I love to think that, we could be falling in love with someone else, but it's always us experiencing our own love. And there's always going to be a lesson there. There's always going to be a deeper healing, a deeper growing, a deeper sharing. And so go into it with curiosity. Just see, like, what is this experience and this feeling all about? That's the juicy stuff, is when we get there, as opposed to think that love is outside of us and that someone else is, we're falling in love with someone else. Yes, of course, we can like someone else's aspects, and, we can feel like, oh, I have such a connection, and, oh, we have so much in common. And that's all great. But there's something more to it. You've got something coming. And it doesn't have to be bad. It can be good. It can just be like the catapulting, growth that you need. So just be in curiosity and learn more about yourself, because that person is just another aspect of yourself that you've called in for your growth and your awakening. All right, let's go to the next question. Question number 3. How can I evaluate or review my life and be intentional about creating my life? Well, I think, in a way, it's kind of answers its own question, right? Because you want to review your life. I don't know about the word evaluate. If you're going to come at it from the angle of judgment, that's not so helpful, because judgment just takes us deeper into our self-loathing or our lower vibrational energies that think that we should have done something different, as opposed to accepting exactly where we are and focusing on the presence of right now. I am here right now, and I have a choice right now in this moment of how I want to feel, of how I'm going to release how I feel, right? Because it might be something that's really devastating that's happened to you, and you actually want to feel that feeling. So it's not about always just like, oh, I'm just going to go to Z and just, make myself happy. It's like, we are human and we want to have those experiences and those emotions, so feel them. So I wouldn't spend as much time in the evaluation as I would in just deep reflection. What were the lessons? Did I get the lessons? Can I still navigate through the lesson so that I don't have to call the lesson in again? And or if I do, that I can move through it with a little bit more ease and grace, right? Because that's what the universe is always going to do. You think you learned a lesson, and then you're going to get another lesson that's similar to see, like, did you really learn the lesson, or did you just kind of think you did? So it's always about coming back to that blissfully neutral state. All right, so I hope that helps, and be intentional about creating my life. That was the other part of the question. Well, that's really up to you. I mean, you are the one that's writing every day in your journal, right? Because we just talked about that, about having a relationship with your guides and being intentional about what it is that you want to experience. And it doesn't have to be in the external world. It can be, I want to experience joy and peace in my heart today. That's what I want in my life today. Show me the way, the people, the places, the things, the interactions that will bring greater joy and peace and love and understanding in my life. And you can use this even in your big corporate jobs, right? You're still going to navigate through the meetings, but it's going to be the lens of which you use when you're in the meeting. I choose joy. I choose to let this roll right off my back, right? I'm going to participate in this meeting. I'm going to participate in my job responsibilities, but I'm going to care less. It doesn't mean that you're careless. It means that you're going to just step back and just care a little bit less about the emotional triggers and aspects that come about in meetings, right? In work, in job responsibilities. And I'm going to just sit in the knowingness that I know what the best thing to do is, and ask for the guidance for it to come to me, so that it's not feeling like you're having to pull the heavy weight all the time. Okay. Just checking the chat here for more questions. And we've got a bunch of them that were pre-submitted. So let's get on to the next question. This is a good one too. Number 4, with the holidays right around the corner, I feel my anxiety rise thinking about family drama. I'd like to avoid this or stop it from starting before it does, but how? I love this question too, because, family, there's always this old saying of, do you want to know how enlightened you really are? Spend some time with your family. And it's so true, because we have, a lot of triggers with family. But why? We have the triggers because they're the ones that helped us install all the programs, all the beliefs, all of the ideations about what life is supposed to be. And then we get out on our own and we create our own ideas about life. And then we're challenged with the way that our parents thought, or our siblings thought, or our in-laws thought, or whatever the case may be. But I think if you start to reframe now before the triggers even come, and you start to come from a place of wanting to understand, the old saying to understand before being understood, and really opening yourself to just hearing what other people are thinking and feeling. Oh, how does that make you feel? Oh, what do you think? What would you like to do? Understand where they're coming from. Oh, okay, I didn't understand that was such an important aspect for you. Let's talk about that a little bit more. Really get deeper into the question. Don't ask the question if you don't really want to hear the answer. Don't ask the question if you just want to tell them what you want and think. That's not going to get you anywhere. So it's come to a place where you can genuinely want to understand the other person's ideas about the holidays, the festivities, the details, whatever it is. Just go into it with a real, genuine desire to understand where they're coming from. Oh, I know we've done that every year. Would there be a possibility that we could consider some other things? No. Well, let's talk about this more. Like, well, what is it about that particular tradition that you love so much? And it has to come from a heart-centered place, right? Because if it comes from a judgmental place, or like a, firing off a bunch of questions place, it's not going to land well. So you got to get into that heart center. And I think that comes with just inner self-reflection. That comes with just like, well, what do I want from the holidays? And going back to how do I want to feel, right? I want to feel great through the holidays. I don't want to feel left out, or I don't want to feel, bullied, or I don't want to feel, snowplowed, or I don't want to feel like I have to do everything, or whatever the feelings are. Get to what it is and then transform it into like, how do I really want to feel? And if it's that I really want to feel like I'm in communion and I'm in a loving, household. And if you don't think that there's a possibility that anyone else in that household can help you feel that, then maybe you consider doing something else. Maybe you do something different this year. And maybe that's something you reflect on. But only after you've really reflected on what it is that you want. And then only after you've had those conversations with others that really understands the perspective. After all this conversation, I just so appreciate that we had such a deep sharing of what we're expecting over the holidays. I feel like maybe I should choose to do something different so that we can both be happy and both have a great holiday. And maybe that means that we do a Zoom call and have a sip of something, so we can still be together. But maybe we don't need to be in the same room. Maybe we don't need to be forcing each other's holiday desires and traditions on each other. But that can only come if you've really done the deeper inner work and really thought through what it is that you want and how you want to feel. I promise, if you do the work, it will help shift. And it's always going to be about your lens and how you perceive the other person and how they're coming across to you. That blissfully neutral state again. All right, let's go to the next question here. All right. Number 5. Do people ever change? Well, I guess I'll answer that a couple of ways. Yes, people can change. But people have to have the desire to change, which I know is really obvious, right? I think the trap that we often get into is that we hope that someone else will change to be more like what we want them to be, or to be closer to how we want someone in our life to act or respond, or their behaviors to be consistent with our beliefs. So I think that the real thing here is to change yourself. And what I mean by that is, it doesn't mean that you change who you are. No, you be who you are. But if you start to change your lens of which you see the other person, that maybe the judgment that you have about how they navigate something in life. When you start to change your lens and when you start to change your vibration, you give them an offering to behave in a different way. And through that offering to behave in a different way, they have a choice, because they have free will to decide if then experiencing your energetic shift within you that comes from the lens of your mind, right? Like, you've switched now how you're perceiving them, and you're switching your heart space, and your energy towards them is different. Whatever, I don't know, I didn't get any more details, but whatever the situation is that you're wishing, or a personality trait or behavior that you would like to have changed. But are they going to change dramatically to a whole different person? They can. But oftentimes it takes something like a near-death experience, or even possibly some kind of, big awakening. It could also be something that is brought on by spiritual medicines, where they can see things differently from a different lens and a different perspective. But the caution here is that we can't change anyone. And I know that the person that asked this question probably knows that. And I know that's not the question. But we have to get inside and try to figure out, like, what are we trying to change about someone else? And then switch our lens, because they are in our life for a reason. We've asked them to play out a certain role in our life. And so let me go deeper in what's in it for me. What's in it for me? And then we can start to see, when we shift ourselves, if these people that we love in our life will make a shift. And if they don't, then sometimes we do have to make difficult decisions, because what we don't want is to have someone else hold us back from our ascension journey, hold us back from our spiritual journey, hold us back from our expansion, right? Our growth. That we don't want. We want to grow in communion with others. And when others don't want to grow, sometimes it means that we spend less time with them. Sometimes it means that we take breaks from them. So there's lots of different things that can happen in these types of situations. And it depends if we're talking about, the question was, do people ever change? Are we talking about a spouse? Are we talking about a child? Are we talking about a friend? There's lots of different types of relationships and scenarios. But again, it's always going to be about you going deep within yourself and asking the question, what did I call this person in for in my life and my awakening and my spiritual growth? For them to be behaving in a way that doesn't feel consistent with where I'm at or want to be in my life. And I think you're going to find some really interesting, juicy nuggets there. All right. Again, in the chat, in the comments below, please write your questions if you have something new, if you want to comment on something that we've just discussed. I'm always open to hearing more. So I love getting the interaction with everyone. Let's go to the next question. All right. I think of my birthday as starting a new year. What can I implement to leverage the new year for my highest good? I guess a new routine sometimes can take things up a notch. I know for myself, sometimes I get really stuck in a great routine, but it gets a little bit stale if I don't just switch things up a little bit. So if it's your birthday and that feels right and it resonates for you, maybe it's something like you sit in a new area, or you do your meditation before your tea, or you do your tea after your meditation, or lots of different scenarios that you can just take up to another level to get new energy flowing. Maybe it's that you eliminate something from your home. Maybe it's that you bring in something new. Maybe you are just looking at the overall patterns of your life. That's also a really good one, to see, like, what is it that I want to do more of? And what are the things that I want to do less of? What are the patterns that aren't serving me, right? And just identifying, again, not from a place of judgment, because we talked about that earlier, but from a place of tender, loving care. What do I really want to bring more of into my life? Is there more friends I want to have? If you're single, do I want to go out and really be dating? And if you haven't, if you're dating a lot and you feel like you're just out socially, but you're not getting the quality time that you want at home. If you're doing too many of your kids' events, or you're not doing enough because you're working too much, you're losing yourself in your child's activities. All of those things are great things to just, let me just think about that. Let me feel into what feels right for me. Because a lot of times we're thinking about what's right for everybody else, what makes everybody else happy. And so coming back to what makes me happy, because when mama's not happy, nobody's happy, right? And that goes for everybody, whether you're a mom or a dad or a single person or not. It's like, it's always about that self-love. It's not about being selfish in the sense of not caring about others, but it's being, sacredly selfish, where you know what's right for you, because when you do what's right for you, then you emanate your blissful glow for everyone else to experience too. So we still take into consideration other people's desires, but we don't make our hard decisions because of people outside of us, right? Okay, let's move to the next question. I feel like I'm trusting, and yet it seems like I'm being asked to trust even more because there is so much uncertainty for me right now. How can I shift to another deeper level of trust? I feel like a lot of us are dealing with this good challenge of deeper trust. If you've been on the spiritual journey for years, as many of us have, then you're going to find that the trust lessons get deeper. The trust lessons get, I hate to say harder, but they feel harder. They feel harder because it feels like we've already stepped through so much. But if you're here as an awakening agent, you're here as someone who's helping to shine the light and show the way for humanity, you're going to go into even deeper levels of trust. And that means sometimes we give up some of the things that feel comfortable, right? The things that maybe we feel like are part of our identity, things that we think are our norm. Maybe they're not going to be our norm anymore. Maybe we need to trust that the divine has us and that everything is happening perfectly just as it is. And that's trust, because everything else other than that is fear. And that's what's creating all of this chaos right now, is that there is this undertow of fear. And when we get really lined up, to source and to our higher self, then there's nothing other than trust. So that's where we want to be. That's where we're headed. That's where we're going. Many of us are there. Many of us are going to keep going to higher levels of ascension. It's not, again, a judgment or an evaluation as much as it is an expansion and a brightness of our light that we're pulling through. So keep trusting. Keep trusting. All right, next question. My boyfriend and I just broke up. I know in my heart it was the right thing to do, and yet my heart is still heavy. What can I do to get past the heartache feelings? Feel them. That's the number one thing, is you really want to feel them. Because if you're just jumping through the hoops, I'm going to just forget about that. I'm going to forget about him. I'm going to go date someone else or her. And you don't feel those heartbreak feelings, then it just goes in on a cellular level and you harbor that. And that impacts your next relationship and your next relationship and your next, until you get to a place where you kind of feel like you're at a breaking point, where you're either going to close your heart and not be in relationship, or you're going to open your heart and say, wow, I don't need to wallow in the feelings of loss or disparity. And I know this question, I get the vibration of it, that you know this is the right thing, but feel the heartbreak. Feel it, because chances are you're feeling sad because you don't have that significant other in your life more than you're feeling sad about losing that particular person. Yes, there's things about that person I'm sure you are missing, but you just said that if you really know that in your heart it was the right thing to do, then you also know that not being with that person is the right thing, and that there's someone else out there that is your next match to take you into the next level of lessons that you've called in for your growth. There is nothing wrong with having multiple relationships. I don't necessarily see them all at the same time, but having multiple relationships in your life helps you to see more about yourself. So when the loneliness creeps in and you want to think, oh, I don't have anyone in my life, it doesn't mean that we have to go back to others if we know that they're not right for us. If they come back around in a way that there's more to learn, there's more to grow, or there's a different dynamic in the relationship, you'll know. And then you'll go back. But until then, feel the feelings, move through them, and keep growing and keep going. And you'll know if something is turning you back around to say, maybe I'm supposed to spend more time with this person. So it should be something that you can move through relatively quickly, because it's like when you start to get the thoughts, then you don't go down the rabbit hole. You actually say, thank you for showing me that. Thank you for allowing me to feel that. I release it. Thank you. And doing some cord cutting. I often like to say cord, removal, because cord cutting is not necessarily as effective, but doing some cord removal as well. That'll help you navigate and move through some of those deeper, heavier feelings in a really good, healthy way. Okay. Number 9, my body is exhausted and I know I need to rest. However, I have a work trip to San Francisco and I can't not go. I want to honor my body, but don't know how to stop what feels like a freight train barreling down the wrong track. What to do? Without knowing more details, I'm going to trust that you can't not go. because you said that for whatever reason, this is a really important work trip. And so I think first and foremost, really trust yourself that this is the judgment call you've made, the decision you've made, I should say, that going is in your best interest. So then it's about, how do I take the best care of myself while I'm there, which means adequate sleep, which means healthier food. So maybe while you're on the plane, most planes have Wi-Fi now, look for healthy restaurants near your hotel. So before you get there, before you're like running into the, I'm super hungry, I need to get something to eat, and you just go to the hotel lobby, or you go to the nearest restaurant, that you have places that have some healthier foods, right? Okay, I'm going to eat more green. Like, that's my thing. Whenever I go to a restaurant, I'm going to order 80%, 50% green. Setting just some really easy things to follow will be really helpful. Having fewer drinks or no drinks, alcoholic drinks, sugar drinks. Maybe you skip on the dessert, right? I know sometimes with work, I'm assuming this is a work trip, you said, we just kind of indulge ourselves. Lots of people order lots of things. It's on an expense account. It's like the dessert shows up, but maybe just go, yeah. Or maybe just have a tiny little taste, so you don't deny yourself, but you just are like, yeah, I don't need all the extra sugar, especially just before you're going to go to bed after probably a full meal. Eat less. You'll sleep more. Take whatever you need to take, before you go to sleep at night. It might be calm, right? So a little bit of magnesium. It might be that you just don't check your email right up until bedtime, right? That you allow yourself time, that you're going to get back to your room by whatever time. 9 o'clock, let's say. And by 9:30, you're going to be in a rest mode. And by 10 o'clock, lights out. So that way, when you get up the next morning, you can be fresh and you can have had a good night's sleep. So some of the basics, right? But it is about just really honoring your body and knowing when to say no. So you've already said yes to the trip, but there's going to be things on the trip that are going to feel like, tug, I should do this. And you're still going to have to say no, because it's not going to work for you. It's not going to resonate for your body, because you don't need to be then off work for a week or 2 weeks afterwards because you're sick, right? And lots of bugs are going around. So you want the extra rest. You want the extra fluids, drink lots of water, all that stuff, all that basic stuff that we all know that we oftentimes just don't implement when we travel. So I'm glad that you at least have the awareness. Just don't be in the judgment of yourself that you went. Just take care of yourself while you're there. All right. The next question. I'm in a rut, a routine of dining and drinking most nights with my husband and our friends. Yet I feel like I want to eat cleaner and drink less. I don't want to break the pattern of community, but how is it possible to change the situation? Is it possible? I think this is kind of similar, actually, to the last question, in that I think it's all about setting an intention of wanting to eat healthier. So researching some restaurants that you go, I know they have a little bit healthier menu. Maybe it's not the places you guys are used to going, but then coming up with a great suggestion to the group. Hey, I found this place. I know it's different than our old standbys, but there's some really exciting things here. There's exciting whatever they have, right? And throwing out different options so that you can start breaking the pattern within the pattern. So the pattern, you're still going out, but you're not necessarily going to the place where it's, deep fry or heavy butter or, heavy sauces or whatever it is. And then also just picking a way to have drinks that feel like cocktails, but aren't, right? So instead of actually ordering, a cocktail, maybe you ask for club soda and cranberry juice, right? It looks like a fun cocktail, but it just doesn't have the alcohol, and it doesn't necessarily have as much of the sugars either. So there's lots of options you can come up with. Maybe it's just sparkling water and lemon, but you do it in a wine glass, right? So you feel like you're still participating in the festivities of everything that's happening, but you're not necessarily diving into all the cocktails and all the routines every night. And maybe it is also that if you have a bottle of wine, that you have one glass. You just say, you know what, I'm just going to have one glass. And every sip, you just have more intention in sipping it. Because I think sometimes what happens, we get in these groups and a glass of wine shows up and we're just like talking and sipping and talking and sipping. And before we know it, the glass is gone. And so just having a little bit more intention behind the glass, right? And I don't know what's coming to mind. I've never done this myself, but it's just, I'm thinking that this could be a really fun strategy, is come up with something, a positive affirmation you're going to say to yourself. You don't have to say it out loud, every time you take a drink, right? And that way it goes, oh yes, I'm having another sip. Okay, let me just pace myself. Let me pace myself with the food, with the wine, and still be engaged in the conversation, but not lose myself with activities that aren't serving me. Maybe you invite people over for more dinner parties. If you're used to going out somewhere, maybe you invite them over. And then you have a little bit healthier food, maybe because you're doing the salads and you're able to have healthier dressings, or you're doing, the meals and you're able to incorporate more vegetables, right? Some of the basics. So I think there's ways to definitely do it, but I think your awareness around even wanting to switch the pattern is so helpful. That right there is going to help move mountains. And then if you can, get your partner or your spouse to support you on this. To not like, oh, let's have another bottle or let's have another this, that you really get them to say, yeah, let's do this together. Let's exercise a little bit more. I know when I exercise more, I eat less and I crave less. So that can help also get more oxygen. Let's incorporate, another idea. Maybe you come up with a fun agreement that for every glass of wine, you have to work out for 30 minutes. That's, maybe that morning of, and that the wine is a reward, right? So that there's kind of this reward system that's fun, not something that becomes like a judgment again. So lots of ideas there, lots of ways you can start switching it up so that you're not out there drinking and eating every single night. Find healthy places, find new ways to have a cocktail without having alcohol, still use the same glasses. And there's just fun ways that you can do it. And who knows, maybe even your friends would like to drink less and dine healthier. And maybe it's not just your partner or spouse that can help support you, but your friends in the circle, that they also participate in finding healthier dishes. And maybe there's even, I don't know, some kind of a fun game you could play around calorie content and who can order the most yummy meal with the fewest number of calories, or something. So lots of ways that you can look at it to make it a lot of fun. All right, I think we're good for today's questions. It's been so much fun, and I always appreciate all the questions that you guys submit to me. I love answering them. I love hearing your comments and your feedback. So please don't hesitate to write me in the chat. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. That way you'll get notifications when we go live. We can be together. It's always so much fun to have interactions. And I just appreciate you. So I wish you lots of bliss, lots of love this week. And we'll see you next week on Unraveling Your Mind to help transform relationships to love and life.